What's going on, guys? Dana White Contender Series Week 9 for the 2021 season, and we're just about coming to an end to these Dana White Contender Series videos, so I know sometimes I push them off. I don't really want to make a preview video on the same day the fights are on, and there's only limited time for the video to be out, but yeah, why not? It's a fun enough card, and it's a very difficult card, so let's put out all of our guns on the table, see what we like the best, and then hopefully put the right plays all together, starting with the main event because there's only 6 fights. Why not? We got Silva as a big underdog against Omargadzhiev. The current line is Omargadzhiev is about a minus 550 favorite. Come back on Silva anywhere between plus 360 and plus 425. Yeah, you got a live underdog on your hands, as you normally do in these Contender Series spots. And Silva, as most Brazilians that are coming onto Dana White's Contender Series, is you're going to see them come out hot right off the get-go, throw some big power shots, try to finish the fight early. And a lot of the time, even if they fought nobody on the regional scene, and Silva's case kind of hasn't fought anybody on the regional scene, they normally do look pretty good in about the first round. That's when we think things are going to fall. But starting with Omargadzhiev, because he's the big favorite, 28-year-old Russian fighter. He does come out of Dagestan and currently splits his time between Dagestan, and he'll go to Europe a lot. So he was going to England. He'll go to London Shoot Fighters. He's back in Russia. He splits his time with different places. He was training with the Tokov brothers. Anatoly just won a Bellator card last weekend. So, I mean, he's getting some high-level training in. But then most recently, he was going to MMA Fight Factory Paris, which was, of course, the gym that produced Francis Ngannou. Currently has produced Cyril Gagne. And, a couple decent Russian prospects actually do fight at the gym as well. So he's well-trained. He's only 28 years old. He does come from that typical Russian game. You'll see him go out there. He's a bit of a pressure fighter, wild, loopy, kind of sloppy with his strikes, but it's Sambo-style striking. They're not exactly looking to set up a jab. They're not exactly set up these crisp 3-punch combinations or, lead with an uppercut. Like it's actually, they will lead with an uppercut, but it's sloppy stuff into a clinch, back your opponent up, and he does it extremely well. He's able to back these guys up. He does show a lot of finishes. One thing about his record is that he'll show a 12-0 undefeated professional record, but it's a little bit deceiving because if you look at his amateur record actually coincides with his professional career. He makes his pro debut in 2013, yet doesn't start fighting amateur until 2014. Has his last amateur fight in 2018, and by that point, he was already 8-0 as a professional, right? And had lost as an amateur. So important to note, he's not some 12-0 pro. Either he was competing as an amateur because his pro record didn't really mean anything, or they weren't really pro fights, or who knows. There's other fighters on the card that are in a similar situation. But if you go back and you look at the amateur stuff, studs. He shows a win over this Axel Sola. Axel Sola is a beast, currently undefeated as a professional, but was a beast amateur. This Dennis Mayer guy who actually knocked him out in 2018, beast. Dennis Mayer is a beast. So as an amateur, he's fighting high level. As a professional, he's fighting a decent level. His last 2 wins in particular, Alexei Novikov, but then more importantly, this Vladimir Vasilev, undefeated 7-0 prospect. That's all good level of competition. So I don't mind what I see out of him. In terms of the actual notes that I wrote down, typical Russian game, decent wrestling, smothering pressure, wild and reckless striking. He is very hittable. He does show the one amateur loss is by knockout, but that's because he leaves himself vulnerable to shots. Could be a problem with Silva, but hopefully not. But he had decent cardio, kept going. And then one big key here is that in all 12 of these professional fights, 185 pounds. As an amateur, fought largely at 185 pounds and twice at 205 pounds. That's going to be important here because you have Silva, who, looking at Silva, he starts out his amateur career, he's fighting at 155 pounds. He makes his professional debut at 163. He competes throughout his entire professional career at 170 pounds. And then his last two, Gustavo Prado at 185 and João Paulo dos Santos, who is 6'8", at 185. So to be honest with you, he's got a 6'2" frame with a 79-inch reach, but he's not really a big, thick, strong middleweight. And even though he does show this big power, he generally fights guys with losing records or are welterweights. If he doesn't go out there and knock out Omargadzhiev early, he's going to be just being grinded on and smothered on. Again, you look at his record as well, beating a lot of these lower-end guys, 0-13, 0-0, 1-2, 1-0. He loses to Wesley Silva, who's 1-0. And Wesley Silva puts it on him pretty good. Gets a knockout victory, takes him down. This guy does not look very good. Rebounds, couple lower-level wins. And then he fights as Gustavo Prado. Now, this is where it dawns on me, right? So he's got 4 amateur careers, and they're all for this DWCS in Brazil, which is Watch Out Combat Show. Then his entire professional career, is also for Watch Out Combat Show. Now, Watch Out Combat Show is an organization in Brazil that generally uses guys from Tata Fight Team. In fact, if you watch any of their shows, the mat has Tata Fight Team all over it. The cage is going to have Tata Fight Team all over it. And in the case of this Gustavo Prado fight, it's actually in the gym. So because of COVID protocol, they were just like, you know what, we can't get a venue. Why don't you just come over to our gym and fight our own guy in the gym? Every single fight he's had. So he's never fought outside of Brazil. He's never fought for another promotion in Brazil. And it's all just been fed to him because the promoter is friends with the head coach. They're all like involved together. That's going to be a problem. Now, if you watch that Gustavo Prado fight, he deads the guy with a head kick. Like bad. Like very, very, very bad knockout. Guy is completely out. Kind of scary knockout, really. And so that's the problem that we might run into here as far as an MMA fight goes is, yeah, maybe he lands a big head kick. Maybe he lands that one big strike. But beyond that, his game's going to completely fall apart. And again, 28-year-old Tata Fight Team, 6'2", 79 inch reach, does not know how to use their reach. I mean, for a bigger guy, first of all, they're fighting in the apex, so it shouldn't matter. But he doesn't fight at range at all. He doesn't fight well off his back foot. And even if you were to stay at range, he moves himself through his own distance. He won't stay at bay. The Gustavo, awful striking defense, doesn't move his head, very, very hittable, bad with his range, doesn't have a ton of power. I know I said he deaded the guy with the head kick, and when you watch him hit those guys with that one big move, lower end guys that are vulnerable to the one shot, could put you out. But he's not a one-hitter quitter. Like, he's not just going to bum rush you and take you out within the first round, you know, with that big right hand. Like, he's going to have to rely on a big flashy move. His wrestling's low level. His grappling looked fairly mediocre. Cardio looked okay. And yeah, just overall, he seemed like a lower level guy. I mean, he'll try to initiate a lot of clinches with these guys, but it's not going to be on the table against this Russian opponent. I think he's going to get taken down. He's going to get grinded. He's probably going to get TKO'd within the 3 rounds. So I would say it's going to be Godsey inside the distance. But I'm minus 550. You know, the money line's been steamed up. We're going to have to use him as a top ticket guy. Do I love him as a top ticket guy? No. But, you know, I suppose theoretically you could do worse. And barring that one big shot, especially in the first round, he's going to start to grind away at him. If he just keeps it standing, he's going to back him up. He'll land more volume. He'll land the heavier strikes. It'll largely be Jancy with his back up against the cage with Omar in his face. And that's just a striking battle. If Omar chooses to just take him down, then we're money. You know, then he's going to grind on him. He's going to tire him out. He's going to take him into deeper waters and should be able to get the victory. But he's got dual paths to victory. You just got to watch out for that big head kick in the first round. Outside of that, should go his way. Christian Quinonez versus Xiao Long Zhao, however you want to pronounce that one. Christian Quinonez is currently about a minus 575 favorite over Zhang Lao, who is a plus 380. And that one's because this is a complete mystery on Long Zhao's case. Who knows what he brings to the table? For Christian Quinonez, 25-year-old Mexican fighter out of Entram. His older brother is Jose Alberto Quinonez, fought in the UFC, actually has a 5-4 record in the promotion, and lost to some good guys. They actually did recently release him from his contract, and he won on the regional scene. But Quinonez was pretty good, man. BJJ black belt, decent enough striking, like to stay to the outside, good body kick game, and started out of Entram, but then spent a large majority of his career with Alliance MMA over in San Diego, California. Younger brother Christian appears to have stayed at Entram and, you know, has a good game, similar in a sense to his brother, but not at all as well, because like Tecco used to throw a lot of kicks, and I don't really see much of a kicking game out of him other than a little bit of flash. He turned pro at 17 years old. He's been competing pretty regularly since. I think he fought once in 2017 and then 3 fights in 2018, 3 fights in 2019, 3 fights in 2020. He's accruing a good amount of experience. So for a 25-year-old kid to have a 15-3 record, it's a little bit misleading. Like, oh, no way he's that young and has that much experience. But he's been competing since he's 17 years old as a professional and continues to get better. For a Mexican fighter, he does have a good jab, but he's not looking to strike. He's not looking to get into one of these barbaric stand-up battles where, you know, you hit him with the best shot and he comes back right at you. He does have that Mexican spirit. He does have that grit. He does have a decent enough chin, but he's not looking to stand with you. He is looking to clinch you and take you down over and over and over. And again, for a fighter out of Entram, which is one of the better gyms in Mexico, his wrestling game don't look too bad. It's not polished. It's not refined. Against some D1 All-American in the UFC, he'd be in a lot of trouble. But as far as the lower level, you know, Latino opposition he's been fighting, he takes them down and he grinds them. The problem is that when he does get them to the ground, his top game's not exactly really, really tight. He does leave a little bit of space. And you'll see, young fighter, he gets reversed a lot. He'll get the dominant position, but then he ends up getting reversed a lot. You go through his record, there's a lot of winnable fights for him that he ended up losing. But his last 2 losses, this Cristiano Souza and Brave FC. Mind you, this is like 4 years ago. He's like 20 years old taking the fight. He gives him a hell of a go, man. First round's an excellent round. Takes him down, looks good. Second round, he starts to tire out. But he perseveres. He comes through. He's winning the second round. Makes a bonehead decision. And literally, he eats like a body shot. He freezes and he looks at him. And then, boom. Actually, it's like a partial head kick. Blocked it. Discombobulated, but he stares at him. Right hand, folds him over. Young kid, going to grow from that. His next loss, Victor Hugo Madrigal. Man, this is a good fight, man. First round, same thing. He's taking this guy down. He fights his way out of omoplata, establishes top control, has a pretty decent top game, at least in this first round of that fight. Second round, he starts to tire again. Once he starts to tire, he starts to make mistakes. And in this case, Madrigal starts to hit reversals, hit sweeps, ends up on top, and pounds it on this kid the last minute of the second round to steal back the round. So now it's probably a 1-1 going into the third round. But the kid's tired. Now he gives up the takedown to Madrigal. Madrigal ends up fishing for a couple submissions, go for an armbar, loses it, and ends up settling for a rear naked choke, get the victory. So on one hand, it's like, oh, damn, good fight, spirited fight. Made a couple decisions, decisions cost him. But he's only 22 years old at the time. So again, I want to give a guy like that a pass. And then he's picked up 3 wins since then. This Eric Wano fight, he just walked right through him. His striking looked a little bit improved, even though you can tell his game is largely based on getting the clinch, getting this guy to the ground, and grinding on him from that top position. And so I think that he's going to be effective enough. I think he's a decent guy for Contender Series. I wouldn't say he's UFC ready, but again, his brothers fought in the UFC and had some decent enough success as far as I'm concerned. This guy's trained pretty well. He's got 18 professional fights at this stage in his career, and his game is effective at this level. So I would say that those are all good things. The X factor is really Long Xiao, who we just can't get a good read on. I mean, he's 23 years old and shows a 16-6 pro record, but you can't find any of these fights. And as much as I tried to fight, I mean, a lot of these WLF fights from China are readily available. So I couldn't really find these ones. And so what you're settled with watching is either ones that were blowout opponents or fights that are old. What you do see is that this kid's not a striker as well. He does not seem comfortable on the outside. He's looking to pick his spots, charge right in, get a clinch, get a hold of you, peel you to the ground. He actually starts his pro career off 4-6 as a professional, but then matched up with lower level Chinese opposition, then he's able to actually no, sometimes he beats an Australian guy, sometimes he beats a Russian guy in the mix, but 5-11 Brazilian, 7-11 Russian opponent, 1-3 Chinese opponent, 2-2 Eastern European opponent. So guys with generally losing records, well, now he's looking really good against them. How much of his game has improved, I'm not entirely sure. Again, he's only 23 years old, so whereas you can pinpoint him as a 20-year-old and say he does this, this, and this wrong, no doubt about it that he would have progressed a lot in the meantime. It's just this is what it really comes down to. So I don't remember what card it was, but it was that Weili Zhang ended up losing. There's like 3 Chinese prospects on the card, and then they announced UFC Performance Institute China or Shanghai has just opened, and essentially they got all these Chinese prospects in China that they're trying to build, trying to develop, and trying to get that next Chinese superstar, because obviously the market is very good over there. There's a lot of money to be made over there. So you want to develop that next guy. So you saw a plethora of them hit the roster, and Zhu Rong, him versus Kuzulo Vargas, he looked like the only decent guy. And no, all 3 of them lost. Kuzulo Vargas ran right through Zhu Rong. They all look really green. Dean Amessinger's apparently the head coach over there. Wasn't a good outing. So when I saw 3 Chinese prospects pop up on this card, I thought to myself, you know what? I bet you this has something to do with the UFC PI in Shanghai. I bet you they got some deal worked out where it's like, we're going to groom these fighters down here and you're going to give them opportunities. But they brought them into the UFC the last time and they looked bad. Zhu Rong's since picked up a win, looked okay, but they shouldn't have done that. I think they realized that. So this time around, it's like, let's put them on Contender Series. And if they are legit, then they'll get a contract and we'll bring them to the UFC. And if they're not legit, then we just snuff it out right there. Bad fighters appear on Contender Series all the time. So essentially, that's what they're bringing. So anyways, I go with this theory, and then I ended up finding that's exactly what happened. It was actually 6 Chinese fighters look to become the latest UFC Academy graduates, signed to the promotion when they compete for contracts on Season 5 of Dana White's Contender Series over the next 2 months. The production line out of the UFC Shanghai Performance Institute keeps on rolling with featherweight Zi Bin, bantamweight Long Xiao, lightweight Mahashate, male flyweights Zhang Shifa and Quilon, and female flyweight Yang Kui, who's also on the card. All set to fight on episodes of the show UFC's Apex facility, Las Vegas, in October and November. The 6 fighters were selected amongst 29 athletes at March's 3rd annual UFC Academy Combine, which allows Chinese and Asian MMA prospects to showcase their skills. So that's exactly what happened. He goes to a tryout in China. He would have already had a 16-6 record at that point. Shows up. They say, oh, yeah, this guy looks pretty decent enough. Why don't you train at the UFC Performance Institute in Shanghai? train here for a few months, and then we'll get you a fight on Contender Series. And this just happens to be the fight on Contender Series. So how much of it is this guy's a legitimate prospect they've had their eye on, who's a refined striker and a great grappler, and he's made all these strides? And how much of it is they owe it to him because they got a deal worked out, and this is how the cog works. This is how the machine works. You always keep advancing, and they're just basically trying to shove all these prospects into a meat grinder and see who pops out on the other side. In this case, I just, there's not enough to say Long Zhao's definitely not popping out on the other side, but there is enough to say Christian Quinonez didn't look terrible and he should be the rightful pick. Again, it's like a minus 575 favorite. You'd want a ton of confidence, not a should win. Javid Basharat versus Oran Kahlon. The line is, this is going to be a banger, 225, depending on your book, but minus 210, minus 220 for Javid Basharat. Comeback on Oran Kahlon about plus 180, plus 165. This probably would have just been an entertaining fight otherwise, but you saw Oran Kahlon yesterday miss weight by like 3 pounds and then called Javid Basharat, who's from Afghanistan, a terrorist. So there's like legit bad blood now, and both guys are kind of, you can tell Oran Kahlon's probably either getting emotional or is just trying to get in the guy's head because he's already missed weight by 3 pounds at this point, whereas Javid Basharat seems to be a lot cooler, calm, and collective. But if I was leaning over 1.5, I'm not so sure. I think it's all mind games for Oran Kahlon, who knows he can't fight 15 minutes and is 40 years old. So he wants a firefight as quick as possible, whereas Javid Basharat likes to take his time. And I think by getting in his head and saying ridiculous stuff, pisses the guy off, gets him emotional, it's more likely to get that firefight. It's more likely to elicit that response from him where he is going to come charging in, make that mistake, and Oran Kahlon's able to capitalize. But yeah, I don't see it. Honestly, I think this guy's super fraudulent. Not fraudulent in the jiu-jitsu world because he's got some legit grappling. I think he's like a 3rd-degree Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. He's got a lot of traditional martial arts black belts under his belt, I should say. But he's fraudulent in the sense that his 16-0 MMA record just seems massively blown up to me. If you look at it, he starts his pro career in 2005, wins a one-night tournament against 0-0 opponent, 0-0 opponent. And then MMA in the South too. Again, it's in Israel. It's a one-night tournament, 0-0 opponent, 0-0 opponent. Then he fights a couple more local Israeli shows, 0-0 opponents. Then he takes a 10-year gap in pro competition, surfaces in Las Vegas, right? Trains with Robert Drysdale in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The guy's got good grappling, I'll give him that. But takes a couple of amateur fights while he's in Las Vegas. Goes 1-1. Jimmy Spikuza, who's actually a brown belt under Robert Drysdale, kicks his ass. Folds him with a body shot, soft body shot. Guy just folds right over. Then he goes back to Israel and he just resumes. It's like a 10-year pro gap. The amateur record doesn't count. Him losing as an amateur doesn't go on his pro record. So he just goes back to 0-0 opponents in one-night tournaments. It could be a grappling tournament for all you know. It's not, right? Because the TKO guy here and there, but like it's almost always these 0-0 guys. Finally, Bellator comes and scoops him up. He takes on this Julian Maloku. Now, Julian Maloku had only been fighting for this IMC in Israel, the same promotion he's fighting for already. Handpicked opponent and terrible fight, man. So it's readily available to watch, and you can go watch it. Bellator has some highlights up for it. That's actually the whole fight. But he comes in just peacocking right away, face out. He's trying to bait you in. He's trying to get you emotional. He's trying to get you pissed off. He's trying to get you to rush in. But outside of like an inside low kick, he's got no striking. And it's all rinky-dink. There's no real power and real substance behind it. Takedown defense, non-existent. Does he physically look all that strong in the clinch position? No. Cardio, don't think it's all that good. He does not look good. What he does have is a flying triangle up his sleeve, throws that up on Julian, and taps him out within inches. Tight triangle, no space in it. Guy's got some legitimate grappling. But that's it. Bellator don't sign him. He goes right back to IMC where he wins a one-night tournament. Then he competes again, IMC 3 in a one-night tournament. Back on a couple local Israeli shows. And against that level of opposition, he's so much advanced from them. They were billing him earlier in the week as being 40 years old. He apparently told them, hey, I'm only 36 years old. So they have changed that to 36, but who even knows if that's true or not? A year ago, Contender Series signed in a fight, Colin Englund. The fight fell through, and then he's just been back in Israel. So I don't know. He's got a sick jiu-jitsu game. The fight hits the ground, he's going to have a shot. Everything else that entails mixed martial arts, I'm really not sold whatsoever on him. And so again, he's slow, bad striking, soft to the body, arrogant stand-up game, bad takedown defense, suspect cardio, hasn't fought professionally or ever in 2 years. Wins over practically bottom level opposition, but sick jiu-jitsu. Sick jiu-jitsu is what he's got going for him. Also, last but not least, he trains out of his own gym, which is usually not a good thing. So take that in consideration. Javi Basharat, meanwhile, 26-year-old Afghani prospect, he's at a London Shoot Fighters, which is probably the best gym in the UK, for my money's worth. They've been around for a long time, produced a lot of very good guys. Currently from Bellator fame, Michael Venom Page is there. And Basharat comes from a Taekwondo background, but you'll see he's real bouncy, real flowy on his legs. Likes to move in and out. Distance management, very nice. Very good kick selection. He's actually Amir Albazi, who fights in the UFC's chief cornerman, right? And I wouldn't say chief cornerman, but he's one of his cornermen. He's cornered him through 2 fights in the UFC to this point. And Amir Albazi, who also trains at London Shoot Fighters, is legit. This guy looks sick. He's a top flyweight prospect in the UFC. And Amir Albazi also corners him. So good working relationship there. Albazi's a 25er. He's a 35er. You know, it's a great body to be working with on the day-to-day basis. And again, you like what you see out of his stand-up game. It's very flowy. What he doesn't do well, and this does happen to be the case with a lot of these Taekwondo guys, is when you're standing at range and they're allowed to be loose and flowy. Very good kicks. He likes to spin. He likes to throw a hook kick. He's got some flashy razzle-dazzle. These tough guys that bite down on their mouthpiece and moves them back, pressures them, causes them to fight off their back foot, they tend to fall apart. And he actually tends to fall apart when you put him on his back foot. But against Oran Kahlon, who's just not a striker to begin with, like I don't see it. I really don't see it. As well, he's not just a Taekwondo guy with striking. He loves to attack the neck. He'll throw a takedown. He'll shoot a takedown. He'll box you up. He'll throw his hands a little bit. He'll kick you. And then as soon as that neck becomes available, he'll go full board for it. Loves the guillotine, loves the anaconda, loves the darce. If you leave your neck out, he goes for it. Cardio seems okay, but it's going to be an issue if someone is able to pressure him for 10, 15 minutes, right? 10 minutes of hard pressuring, he'd be tired. And if it was 1-1 going into the third, I'm not sure how much I'd like his odds. Again, this one just comes down to the fact that he's 26. He's taking on a 36-year-old opponent. Could be older than that. Claims he's 36. It's a 10-year gap. Kahlon doesn't have the wrestling. Kahlon doesn't have the pace. He doesn't have the cardio. He doesn't have the striking. He just needs to pull guard and drag this thing to the ground and try to make it as much of a bog. But again, if you're Javid Basharat, his ground game is not bad. He's got the wrestling advantage over here. Offensively, his wrestling's pretty good. Defensively, his wrestling's pretty good. And so keep this fight standing, and you're going to have a significant striking advantage. If you can't keep this fight standing, he does have the offensive wrestling to get at least in top control. It's just try not to grapple all that much, because this guy is going to be dangerous in that one position. He'll be throwing up heel hooks. He'll be throwing up whatever he can to cause a submission. And Javi's just got to not get overextended, not get over emotional, and he should be okay. So yeah, I also, last but not least, he had a contract with Contender Series. He was supposed to fight Saman Oliveira a month ago, like 5 weeks ago, but he had a visa issue. So not an injury, visa issue, but you know you got the contract. You know you got the fight. You're training hard. You're in preparation, and all they do is just reschedule it a month later. Well, Oran Kahlon, he didn't know he was fighting Basharat a month ago, so he's actually probably coming in on a 4 or 5 week camp, despite the fact that he got signed to Contender Series a year ago. There's like been a 13-month layoff here. He hasn't fought in 2 years. Basharat, meanwhile, he'll have those advantages. So I think he's just going to be a little tighter, a little bit quicker to the gun, and gets the job done. So I'm going to be playing Javi Basharat. Moving on, we got Silva versus Ki Hui Yan. The line is currently minus 235 on Silva, I believe it was. It's minus 270 now. Minus 270 Silva. Come back on Kui about plus 220. I'll just rip through what I got on my notes. Wasn't overly excited about this one, but yeah, Kui's the exact same thing. She's a 25-year-old Chinese prospect out of UFC Performance Institute, China. She got herself a contract when she attended a tryout back in March. They said, hey, there's something that we can work with there. She's already got some pro experience. She's 11-3. Bring her into the fold. She looks to have some decent speed from the outside. She will have a speed advantage over Silva. She will have a striking advantage over Silva. She does better work from the outside. She has a decent enough kicking game. She's going to have some better output. But she seems small for 125 pounds. And a lot of the girls that she's fought or kind of small for 125 pounds as well. But you can tell that against a bigger fighter, she's going to have problems in the clinch because she loves spending time in the clinch, and she's got suspect cardio. So my worry would be is that she could keep this fight on the outside and just strike for 15 minutes. That's probably her best path to victory. But she seems to willingly engage in a lot of clinch type fighting, and that clinch type fighting against a bigger fighter is going to eventually tire her down because her cardio looks a little bit suspect to me to begin with. If you look at her past opponents and past fights, again, it's nothing to write home about. It's a decent enough level of competition. She beat Ju Miao twice, who was a 1FC veteran. She actually beat Na Liang, who was one of those UFC fighters I was talking about earlier, fought in the UFC. Shouldn't have, right? But did because, and they've learned their lesson now. They're on Contender Series, but has a win over her. Lost to Alina Kalinandu, who's a decent enough Greek fighter who fights for Bellator. So it's not like the level of competition's bad. It's first round head kick, 22 seconds. First round rear naked choke, first round arm triangle choke, first round KO, early in the second round arm bar. She likes to finish these fights very quickly. Against Karine Silva, meanwhile, Karine Silva's coming down from 135 pounds. So she represents that bigger fighter we were talking about, is that she's big, she's physically strong, and she's very, very slow. Striking is not very good, but she'll spam takedowns. And if she does happen to get one of these takedowns, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, spends a lot of time working on her grappling, heavy hips, and will just lay into you, man. I mean, she will, of course, go for the first round submission if she can get it as well. But if not, she's just very heavy in with her hips. She'll maintain position and just grind you down. She's fought a much higher level of opposition, and she's done fairly okay. I would say at some point this fight hits the ground, Karine Silva ends up on top, and that's where she'll do her best work. She's going to have a problem with the speed advantage and the striking advantage early. But as soon as Jan starts to tire out, and again, we've seen her tire out in the fights that have gone beyond the first round, she looks pretty good in the fights that don't end in the first round. Is she going to come out here and knock out Karine Silva in the first round? I seriously doubt that. So this thing's going to play out beyond that. And when you look at Jan, her jiu-jitsu, it's effective in the Chinese regional scene, but she's going to get exposed by one of these big, heavy-set grapplers. And in Karine Silva's case, she is that. Power grappling out of Brazil. I mean, that's what they're known for. Again, she's only a brown belt, but she trains at a pretty legitimate academy over in Brazil and spends a lot of time specifically working on her grappling. So whereas she's one of these fighters where she gets into a striking bout, she's going to be in trouble. She don't do that, at least not on tape. She comes in, she shoots takedowns. She knows what she's there to do, and she gets at it right away. I believe she's only 27 years old, still going to be getting better, and she looks a little soft, little out of shape at times, but that's at 130, 135. Coming down to 125, natural weight class, strength advantage, grappling advantage. Put both of them to good effect, and Karine Silva should be able to get the victory. Manuel Torres versus Englund. Englund is a minus 135 favorite. Comeback on Manuel Torres is about plus 120, plus 130. I'm Englund here. This one's like one of the closer line fights on the card, and to be honest, I like it. Englund's problem, and of course, everything's too good to be true, is that he's got a soft-ass chin, man. He can't take a punch, and that's always going to be a red flag. That's always going to be a worry. But yeah, geez, outside of that, he's got a superior skill set, so we just hope he doesn't get chin-checked. He shows 2 losses as an amateur. One of them he got knocked out in the first round. One of them he had a shoulder injury, so they're both TKOs. As a pro, he got knocked out in 46 seconds in his debut. Then he got knocked out a minute 52 into the first round. That was his second pro loss. His third pro loss, he got knocked out 4:45 of the very first round. That accounts for his 3 pro losses. So 3 pro losses, 2 amateur losses, all 5 of them by TKO, 4 of them inside of the very first round. One of them he hurt his shoulder in the second. Don't look good, man. Don't look good. But he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. His wrestling looks pretty okay. And when you watch Contender Series, what you'll notice is a lot of these guys they're real anxious, they're real amped up. They go out there, they're swinging bombs, and every week we like the fights. They're entertaining fights, but every week it's like, whoa, that was a crazy round. Or whoa, that guy was a 10-1 favorite and almost just lost. It's because they're so green still. They're so inexperienced and they're so nervous that it causes them to just go out there and let it go. But Englund's not like that. He's super composed. That's one good thing I'll give him is he's not getting knocked out because he's being an idiot running in there and letting himself expose. He is patient. He seems smart enough. Unfortunately, not everybody's gifted with an ability to take a punch. And in his case, it just don't look like he can take a great punch. Going back to the footage that we've watched on him, again, what I like is that he's aggressive. He's in your face right off the hop. I mean, he is calculated. Again, you watch him, you can just see there's this overall smoothness to his game that comes with experience, but he doesn't give you a whole lot of space to operate. He does everything right. It's just a problem that if he got chin checked, he doesn't seem to be able to stand up to it. But it stays in your face, doesn't give you a whole lot of space to work with. Decent cardio, which is key, because if you're going to fight a stay-in-your-face type game plan, you can't be gassing out. His case, he carries it over through. For a guy that doesn't seemingly have a collegiate wrestling background, guy had good wrestling, solid wrestling. But once again, it's the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Once the fight hits the ground, that's when he's very comfortable. Established top control, good ground and pound, good submission threat. He'll take it by decision if he needs to. And you see that in his last 3 fights, right? An armbar victory, a TKO due to punches victory, a unanimous decision victory. He's the current Fury FC lightweight champion, I believe it is. Yeah, his current Fury FC lightweight champion, Dana White, essentially he was on this looking for a fight. They said, you look good, but Fury FC wanted to give him one more fight, which is a title fight. He won the title fight over Alex Williams, and now he's getting his contender fight. So he's doing all the right things, moving in the right direction. Of course, it just comes back to the fact that he's had some not so great success when he gets faced up with power punchers. So with Manuel Torres, that was my one biggest concern. It's like, well, this kid just lands on him. Like, I hate losing tickets on I got the better guy, but he happened to get hit, because it's a fight, right? They're going to get hit, obviously going to get hit. But in Torres' case, it's like he's not looking to strike at all. He's looking to clinch up. He's looking to get the fight to the ground, and he's looking to grapple. And his submissions look legit, man. This guy's a good grappler. In fact, he's only 26 years old. I would say that this kid could be good down the road. He's just really green right now. And where he loves throwing up these submissions, it ain't going to work against Englund. Englund's a black belt. In fact, a better black belt. This kid's not even a black belt. So, I mean, he's just a black belt. He's going to be able to stuff the submission attempts. Beyond that, he's got the better wrestling game. He should be able to dictate where this fight goes. He's actually got the better striking game. So if he chooses to keep it standing, he should be able to just beat him, stay in his face, pressure him, move him backwards, get him up against the cage, grind on him, land those dirty boxing strikes, separate, and then just get right back in his face and keep doing it, keep grinding on him. When you show a lot of first-round finishes, what do you go beyond that? Englund can fight 15 minutes. That's important. So Manuel Torres has got the puncher's chance, but he didn't knock out anybody. He hasn't had like a clean KO victory in 5 years, So is it a chance? Yeah, there's always a chance, but is it probable? Probably not all that probable. Likewise, when he loses, he gets extended out of these first rounds. So Colton Englund, just mind your P's and Q's in the first round, grind on this guy, and then beyond that, it'll start to open up your overall game. So at minus 135, Englund's kind of going to have to be used because he's going to make tickets. We got Omargadzhiev as a minus 550 favorite, right? Christian Quinonez is a minus 555 favorite. Javi Basharat, I like minus 220. That one's going to be key. Silva is about a minus 250. Don't like her as much as I like Basharat. You're going to have to use her at some point. And then Colton Englund, minus 135. That's going to add a ton of value. And then last but not least, we got Olivier Murad versus Binzi. The line has been soaring on this one. Binzi's currently a minus 290. The comeback on Oliver Murad is a plus 220. The thing here is that this, maybe not. Apparently, it opened up 2-1 Binzi. I thought I saw the line closer to even, and I kind of agreed with it being closer to even. And then now you've got 3-1 Binzi. It's like either just spam the underdog bet in Olivier Murad or pass it. Don't have any exposure to it whatsoever. Maybe they know something we don't, while there's a ton of money coming in on the other side. And this happened with Bagdasarian a couple weeks ago. Maybe it was last week. Was it Bagdasarian's fight in the Contender series? It's like a ton of money moved. He was an underdog, and he ended up going off as like a 2-1 favorite. A ton of money came in. I faded that money. I just didn't understand why it was. The kid looked really good, right? He got a first-round KO. Not that was totally unexpected based on the film, but the smart money was smart on that one. In this case, I don't know what they're seeing in Binzi, but the money's coming in on him. Now, from what I can see from Binzi is that he's got the one FC fights, right? He's fought his entire career for one championship. They signed him right off the get-go. They liked what they saw. They thought they had an interesting prospect, but he loses his pro debut for them. He wins a second pro fight, a split decision over a 1-2 opponent, and then loses a split decision against Casey Swear. So he actually starts his one championship career out 1-2. But then they match him up with a bunch of traditional martial artists from the Philippines, from Indonesia, from just a bunch of places in Southwest Asia, Southeast Asia, I guess I should say. And yeah, like he's grinding a lot now. He's grappling a lot more. I mean, he can strike. He seems like he's fast. He's got a nasty little right hand on him, but he's just looking to take these guys down. And because they come from these traditional martial arts backgrounds, they don't know wrestling. They don't know jiu-jitsu. He runs right through these guys. Lower level opposition, but second round finish, guillotine, second round finish, corner stoppage, first round Darce choke, second round Darce choke, technical decision over Edward Kelly. That would be his one big win, was a technical decision over Edward Kelly, but that fight's 2 years ago. So he's only 23 years old right now. I mean, last time we saw him, he was 21. It looked like he was pretty good. How many improvements has he made in the last 2 years? Yeah, sky could be the limit for him. And in comparison to the other two Chinese prospects we've talked about, this kid looks good. This kid was actually fighting for a reputable organization over in Asia, ONE FC, the biggest organization over there. I'm not going to say fighting lackluster competition because he's young. He's a young fighter building his career. This is the kind of level that you should be fighting. But to jump from that into the UFC right off the get-go, like I don't know. And he hasn't fought in 2 years. I'm really not so sure. He lists himself as a wrestler, as a grappler. It makes sense when you watch his fights. He's looking to wrestle. He's looking to grapple. But against Olivier Murad, he's the current Titan FC champion. He splits a little bit of time down in American Top Team. He just beat Mamajad Naimov for the title. Naimov can wrestle. And that's what I like out of Murad. Murad can wrestle. He's a grinder, like he's got a decent all-around game. The problem is that he's very green himself. I mean, he's 27 years old, but it just seems like he could use a little more experience in there. He's a 7-0 amateur. He's currently a 5-0 professional. It's lower level opposition. His last fight with Naimov was his best fight. He went it's only a 3-round fight despite being for the featherweight title, but you see him noticeably start to fatigue. He's out there, he's grappling, he's grinding, his striking's a work in progress, his speed's not quite there yet. He looks good, he just doesn't look great. And against Bing Z, it's probably going to be a lot of time spent in the clinch. They're probably going to be wrestling a lot. I guess you would say Bing Z's fought the higher level of opposition. He's fought under the brighter lights. The 2 years off, honestly, the way this kid looked at as a 21-year-old, as a 23-year-old, I'm actually looking forward to seeing what he's got. Whereas I know what Olivier Murad's going to look like. Well, maybe not. I guess he fought 8 months ago, but this one just seems greasy to me. I think the UFC would like one of these Chinese prospects to be legitimate. And of the three, this looks like the legitimate one, but he hasn't fought in 2 years. They haven't even given him a walkover opponent here against Murad. And as a 3-1 favorite, something about it I don't quite love. He looks faster. Looks like he has a striking advantage. He just never uses the striking in most of his fights, which would lead you to believe it's going to be a grappling match. If it's a grappling match, it's going to be pretty 50-50. The difference maker for me and why I'm not taking the underdog shot is Binzi's cardio. Even though he finishes a lot of guys, it looks like he's good to go. He's only 23 years old. I think he's likely going to be good to go, whereas Murad slows down. His pace takes it out of him. So I got to think that the young Chinese fighter is going to come out here and do good. And last but not least, I suppose the 2-year-long layup, that don't mean nothing. It used to be, we used to talk about it all the time. Dude hasn't fought 10 months. Dude hasn't fought a year. But every card now, there'll be some dude on this card. There'll be some dude on the PFL card. There'll be some dude on the Bellator card. There'll be some dude on the UFC card. They come off 2, 3, 4, 5-year-long layoff and look as good as they ever have. So that's a total myth as far as I'm concerned. Anyways, if we're going to try to throw together some parlays really quick, I think right off the hop, you got to go with your big, heavy favorite Russian. One, he's the main event, so at least you'll get some type of hedge-out option, assuming that we get that far. I really wouldn't want to use Quinonez as a second ticket guy because that's only going to give you minus 250, which means you're going to have to add a third guy. Just opens you up to too much risk. I'd like to pull Englund personally, but am I overreaching myself there? I'm not so sure. So I think you just go against the Israeli jiu-jitsu specialist. Honestly, I know they're going to be emotional, but Javi Basharat's got a much more refined skill set, trains at a higher level. Got to think he comes through. That's going to give you minus 139. We're going to add Quinonez after that, and that way you get a plus 103. Those are your top two tickets, essentially. Then we're going to go with Cole and Englund, because once we establish that, we're going to take some chances. That's going to give us a plus 250. Then I think you go with Silva. That's going to give you a plus 377. And then shit, Bob's your uncle, man. If you just go with Bin, which a lot of money's coming on Bin, you're still going to get a plus 542 out of it. If you want to get crazy and just go with Murad, you're going to get a plus 1500 out of it. So significantly better. But whatever. Like, I'm personally not all that confident in it. Looking at the tape, I'd say this is going to be a close fight. Probably going to go to decision. And I don't know, it could be a 29-28 either way. So why would you want to pay 3-1 on either guy? But something I must be missing there, man, because it seems like people are real sold on him. If the UFC's behind him, he's legit. 23 could be a good prospect. That Zhu Rong, right? He fought in the UFC. He was like, what, 19 or 20, right? And he looked awful against Kazulo Vargas. Holy shit. And then literally very next fight, 4 or 5 months later, totally different fighter. So hopefully we get the best version of Bin Z here, or he could be in trouble. But if he shows up, whatever, I'd like this 5-1 ticket. So that's what I'm going to go with. In terms of props, yeah, I don't know. I bet a lot of over 1.5s in these fights because typically they actually hit the over 1.5, and they always offer you the 1.5. But Omargadzhiev versus Jancy Silva, like, yeah, the way Jancy fights, who knows? But I would say Omargadzhiev probably grinds him up against the cage, eventually does take him down, beats him up a little bit. The over 1.5 at plus 110, I'd probably go with that. Christian Quinonez versus Long Xiao. What do you really know about Long Xiao? But they're kind of both grapplers, right? So that's going to take time away. Long Xiao, from what we do see, likes to spend time in the clinch. Christian Quinonez likes to spend time in the clinch. Neither of them have big knockout power, so over 1.5 set at minus 205, but I would say that probably hits the over 1.5 as well. Korean Silva versus Quinonez, you would think some over action on there, but I'm not particularly interested in that one, to be honest with you. Englund, Manuel Torres, both grapplers. Englund's going to have to tire him out a little bit. Looking for the over 1.5 in that one. Basharat versus Kahlon. I'm not feeling the over 1.5 there. I think there's a lot of variables there. There's a lot of variables on this entire card. A lot of variance, I guess I should say. But this one, they're seemingly not very happy with each other. And Kahlon likes to finish early with the submission. Basharat is going to have a significant striking advantage over him. Could be interesting. And I guess the last fight on the card is Olivier Murad. I got that thing straight up just going the distance, which is plus 120. So I don't know. Like, I probably should have spent more time looking at props before I sat there and talked about them. Like, I'm mostly just looking at what's the money line, what can we parlay together. The last couple of shows for us, we screwed up Bellator, we screwed up UFC, and yeah, that's what happens when you parlay. You can have 4 or 5 on a winning ticket. That one loss screws you, right? So limited your exposure. Who's our apple pie shitter here? Not sure, but as long as Basharat wins, that sets you up at least for a main event hedge out, and then hopefully Christian Quinonez, Englund rounded off. The rest of them would all just be gravy. But yeah, it's an interesting card. What else are we going to do on a Tuesday, right? That's what I always say. So let's get at it. Fight start in a few hours, so try to get those picks in. Hopefully the lines don't go anywhere crazy, and hopefully things go according to plan. We make this one a profitable one because we do got PFL coming up this weekend and a UFC card coming up this weekend. So this show's all going to be about building up that bankroll, grinding up a few extra bucks, and then putting them into a good cause at a bigger show. So